Former Mugabe ally turned foe Emerson Mnangagwa returns to a heroic welcome in Harare ahead of his swearing in on Friday. Zimbabweans living in the diaspora prepare to return home after the fall of long-serving ruler Robert Mugabe. UPDF soldiers deployed to ease the suffering of Ugandans as crippling doctors' strike enters its third week. And tonight, how UNICEF is helping primary school girls in Ethiopia beat stigma associated with adolescence. Welcome once again. The program begins right now. On our Twitter poll tonight, we are asking you which current African leader stands out for you and why. Which current African leader stands out for you and why? We'd like to hear your feedback on this. And remember, our hashtag is BottomLineAfrica. Our Twitter handle is at KTN News. You can as well tweet me at Yusuf Ibra. And I'm going to make sure I go through some of your feedback within the program. Now, top on our stories tonight. And we begin from the south of the continent, and that is Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe's former Vice President, Emerson Mnangagwa, whose sacking led to the shock resignation of longtime leader Robert Mugabe, will be sworn in as the new president of Zimbabwe on Friday. Now, Mnangagwa arrived back into the country to an ecstatic welcome by supporters. He was flown back into the Manyame airbase in Harare from neighboring South Africa. And that is where he met President Jacob Zuma. He said to take power after Robert Mugabe's resignation brought a sudden end to 37 years of authoritarian rule by Mugabe. Now, still on Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe's parliamentary speaker says he has been formally notified by the ruling ZANU-PF party that Emerson Mnangagwa will be sworn in as president on Friday. He said that according to Zimbabwe's constitution, the presidential nominee has to be nominated by the party of the former president, and this nominee must then be sworn in within 48 hours.
In the event that Comrade Robert Gabriel Mugabe resigned or was impeached, Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa was appointed as Zimbabwe African National Union Patriotic Front, ZANU-PF's nominee to fill the vacancy in the office of the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
Now, following the resignation of Robert Mugabe, that is the Zimbabwean former president, on Tuesday, the Zimbabwean community in the diaspora went into frenzied celebrations. Those in Johannesburg, that is in South Africa, hit the roads to celebrate, chanting and dancing with the hope of going back to their country soon. Wilf Mbanga, a Zimbabwean journalist who lives in exile in South Africa, says the fall of Robert Mugabe as Zimbabwe's president means it is time for his fellow countrymen to return back home. Most elite Zimbabweans are spread across the world after leaving the country whose economy crumbled with Mugabe's controversial land reform program in the early 2000s.
I'm thanking the soldiers from Zimbabwe and all these young guys who are here were suffering. Yes. We want to go back home. Yes. Even tomorrow, even now at night, we are very happy. I've got nothing to say. I'm very, very happy.
Mugabe, he has been mistreating us mistreated us for many years. But now we are willing to go back in our country, in Zimbabwe.
We've been waiting for this day, I don't know how many years now. Since it's been ruling, it's been 37 years now since it's been ruling. We're so happy, and now we can go back at any time with freedom at last. He was a bad president. At first he was okay, but now he was a bad president because he had a corrupt government.
Well, you might be asking, who is exactly Emmerson Mnangagwa, a man who is now set to succeed Robert Mugabe, who until last month served as a comrade, as a friend to Robert Mugabe, and he was fired as the vice president of Zimbabwe after he, of course, he had fallen out in favor of Robert Mugabe. So the man set to succeed President Robert Mugabe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, fled abroad 2 weeks ago when he learned of an alleged plot to kill him in Zimbabwe. Let us now turn our attention to the infographics and take a look at Mnangagwa's political history in Zimbabwe. This is a man who has been nicknamed the crocodile because of the manner in which he deals with his opponents, political opponents. And as I've already mentioned, he's a long-time ally of former President Robert Mugabe. Actually, one writer said, if I hate Mugabe, I must also hate this man. There is no Mugabe without Mnangagwa, two sides of the proverbial coin. He is a senior member of the ruling ZANU-PF. No wonder they've mentioned him or nominated him as the next president. Of course, he's set to be sworn in on Friday. Mnangagwa served as vice president of Zimbabwe from the year 2014 up until his dismissal earlier this month. When there was voter intimidation in the 1980 elections in the rural areas, Mnangagwa was involved in that. Now, this is what led a section of the opposition to warn people that Mugabe was an Idi Amin. His sidekick was Mnangagwa then. And when Gugurahundi happened, that is the tribal consolidation of power by Mugabe, it was the same Mnangagwa, the crocodile, who was overseeing the 5th Brigade's work as chairperson of the Joint Command. More than 20,000 innocent people were massacred then. Actually, in his own account, Mugabe referred to that moment as a moment of madness. Now, people talk about rigging of elections by Mugabe. Well, guess who was in charge of the ZANU campaign? That is the ruling party nationally when that rigging happened. Well, finish the sentence once again. It's Emmerson Mnangagwa. Now, in the last 7 years, Mnangagwa has shown how ruthless he can be. When he was Minister of Defense, he took on his longtime rivals for power. The Mujuru family, they had to be eliminated. So what did he do? He went back to his murderous ways, and Mugabe orchestrated the death of Josiah Tongorara, that is Zandla guerrilla commander. So a lot of accusations and counter-accusations against this man who is now set to succeed Robert Mugabe. Boris Johnson is on record, that is UK's foreign minister, is on record having said that Zimbabweans should be careful that they should not bring another Mugabe into power. But the good or the positive side is that they're going to participate in another election next year. Perhaps the opposition might stand a chance. Now, over to Uganda, where a nationwide doctor strike is now in its 3rd week, crippling provision of medical services in public hospitals across the country. Now, the Ugandan People's Defense Forces have now been deployed to work in civilian government hospitals. The UPDF spokesperson, Brigadier Richard Karamire, says the officers that range from the rank of captain to colonel are fully qualified medical practitioners that will help manage the crisis. Sheila Tusime Mugisha, from our partner station NBS Uganda, filed the following report.
The Uganda People's Defense Forces last week dispatched a team of doctors to the government hospitals of Chirudu and Kawempe to help treat the stranded patients following the ongoing countrywide doctors' strike. NBS TV visited some of the hospitals this morning and found the military doctors working tirelessly, attending to the long queues of patients. But because of their background that identifies them with the military, there have been claims by sections of the public that these UPDF doctors may not, after all, be qualified medical personnel.
Some people have insinuated that some of these doctors we have deployed are not qualified. These insinuations are regrettable and very laughable indeed. We have deployed some of our best doctors, highly qualified, being coordinated by Colonel Dr. Kusasira, the Director of Medical Services, who holds a bachelor's degree in medicine and surgery. He also has a master's degree. So for those who think that we have deployed and trained doctors, it's really very sad.
Asked if the force would manage the huge numbers in the hospitals, the one-star general answered in the affirmative, saying they would do whatever it takes to save lives.
Although they look to be few, for us as UPDF, it is something. It's a big token we are providing to our wananchi. We know they can save lives, however few they are.
The UPDF has been beefed up with Uganda Police Force as talks between the government and the medical practitioners continue. In other parts of the country, the UPDF and police health units remain open to the public. Known as the People's Force, the Uganda People's Defence Forces has maintained its oath of service above self. It has moved from maintaining peace and security to now treating the ill Ugandans.
Now, over to the west of the continent and the most populous country that is in Africa, Nigeria. The United States and Nigeria Binational Commission has signed a memorandum of understanding in Abuja towards the economy, good governance and security. Now, the United States government says it will contribute an additional $45.5 million to rehabilitation efforts in the Northeast. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan said this at the Nigeria-U.S. Binational Commission, that is BNC, meeting in Abuja. Now, Sullivan said the support will help those who had been affected by violence in the Northeast to rebuild their lives. He, however, urged the government to sustain a comprehensive approach to restoring peace, security and development in the Northeast of Nigeria.
We'll be working with, we are already working and will expand our cooperation, because how fast Nigeria moves will, in our view, very much determine not only your own future, but the market for our own goods and services in the future. We are in a symbiotic race together. This is not a competition between competitors of different teams, but we are pulling with you in all of those areas where your president and your government and your industry seeks to diversify and broaden the base of your economic activity.
From Nigeria over to their neighbors Ghana, and Ghanaian President Nana Addo has met the British Prime Minister Theresa May in London. Now, the meeting forms part of Nana Addo's three-day visit to the United Kingdom to boost bilateral ties between both countries. The talks center on trade and investment, as Britain has expressed interest in doubling investment in the next 4 years in Uganda, in Ghana. And UK's trade volume to Ghana is currently about 3.5% of the nation's total international trade estimates. Now, Nana Addo is also expected to be presenting a speech on the topic, quote-unquote, democracy and development at the Cambridge Union Society of the University of Cambridge. Over to a country that has experienced some sort of a civil disobedience for the last 5 months, and that is Togo. And Togo President Faour Nassibé has said that he will convene dialogue with the opposition within a few weeks. Now, the opposition in Togo has been protesting since August, demanding his departure from the presidency, a position has held since succeeding his father in the year 2005. Now, the protesters are also demanding the return of the Togolese 1992 constitution and are particularly rebelling against the draft constitutional reform. Nassibé made the revelation during a visit to Abidjan, where he held talks with President Alassane Ouattara.
Situation, regardless of developments, must end with dialogue. And this dialogue is being prepared. For dialogue, there must be two people. So my voice alone is not enough. The negotiations are in process. I think that within a few weeks, this dialogue will be able to open.
We
are confident. We hope for peace in Togo. We consider peace in this sub-region to be indispensable for economic and social development, and we are committed to this.
Over to development in Somaliland, and candidates for Somaliland's ruling party has been declared winner of the November 13th presidential election, local media sources have reported yesterday. Now, Musa Bihi Abdi of the ruling Kulmiye party polled 55.1% of votes to emerge winner. His closest contender was Abdurrahman Iro of the Wadani party, who polled 40.7%, with Faisal Ali Warabe finishing last with 4.7% of the total votes cast. Now, the election became the first in the world to employ the iris kind of recognition technology in order to avert electoral fraud. Even with the technology, opposition parties have alleged fraud claims which were dismissed by the electoral body. President-elect Musa will replace Ahmed Mohamud, well known as Silanyo, who did not seek re-election, opting to step down after his first 5-year term. The term was controversially extended for 2.5 years due to shortage of funds and a drought that has crippled the economy there. Well, and that story takes us to a very short break, but when we return, we're going to discuss more on Zimbabwe, even as they prepare to swear in Emerson Mnangagwa as a man who's going to replace Robert Mugabe after almost 4 decades in power. To discuss with me that topic, we already have our guest in studio. We have Mark Bichachi, who's a political analyst. We have Javas Bigambo, a governance expert, as well as Dennis Ndumbi, who is a security analyst, also doubles up as a political analyst. I'm sure it's a discussion you don't want to miss. Stay with us. We'll be right back.